It's been said that there are three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. That doesn't mean that stats lie to us, but if we misread them, we can easily lie to ourselves. It's worth remembering when reading polls ahead of the midterms. They've come under a lot of scrutiny for some good reasons. Political surveys lost a lot of clout after the 2016 presidential election. Donald Trump consistently trailed in many major polls, but won that race. Since then, polling has evolved, but how should we think through their results? Who does these polls? And how do we know which ones to trust? Let's get into all of that with NBC senior political editor Ben Camisar and Jessica Taylor, the Senate and Governor's editor for the Cook Political Report. Good to see you both. And Ben, let me start with you. How do we at NBC News think through the role of polling in our reporting? What service specifically do polls serve?
It's a good question. I mean, so we do our own polling, but as NBC News, we release it publicly. But that's not the only polling that we look at. And to your question, I think it's really the right frame here. This is not, we like to talk about polls like hurricane prediction models. We can't tell you exactly, a week out where the hurricane's going to hit down to the mile. We can give you a general idea of where it is, the speed, things like that. I feel like it's a good analogy when it comes to polling. We can give you, whether or not a race is competitive, whether or not a politician is popular, unpopular, or somewhere in the middle. There are questions that you can answer that don't require 100% precision, but can sort of take a temperature and a mood of an electorate or a larger group of people. That's where the polling really shines. I think some of the missteps and some of the overreactions come when you sort of treat polling, this race is 49% to 48%. That must mean a candidate's up by 1 point. That's not the type of precision that you want.
Jessica, talk about how political polls are constructed at the highest levels, the polls that we consider the most reliable, the most trustworthy in terms of figuring out the questions, how do you find the people you talk to, the building blocks of a political poll. How do those come together?
So really reliable ones will use voter files in many instances. And so you're asking people that have voted before in those regards. And questions, I think, leading questions in a way, but I think for me, when I'm looking at some of this polling, some of the most interesting things are not the horse race numbers, but it can be a candidate's approval rating, how many undecideds are, how do those undecideds line up, and some of that can sort of give us a hint about where things could go. But Ben's exactly right. I think one of the things that really gets missed is that you expect it to be exactly what the polling has shown, but there's a margin of error, maybe sometimes 3-4 points or so, that can go in either direction. So it's actually a very large window when you are looking at this. And that's why I think some of the crosstabs that we look at can often be more instructive. And you want to choose pollsters that are, some of the ones that we trust the most are ones that are very transparent about their methodology. You have to sort of live telephone polling has been the gold standard for a long time. But of course, now we are a very different society where very few people have landlines. You've got to call cell phones, sort of mix in both. But ultimately, it just gets harder and harder to poll because you get a lower response rate nowadays. And so it can just take so much longer to do this type of poll. And then they weight it if they don't get the types of respondents that they need. So we've seen reweighting, particularly in education after 2016. That was one of the big misses. But also, the polls were very off in 2020 still, too. And I think there's just a section of the electorate when Trump is on the ballot that are skeptical of polling and are hard to reach.
Let me ask you to define two things quickly before I move back to Ben. You mentioned that often you will look at the crosstabs. What are crosstabs?
So it will give you more information. So say that, when you're looking at, 48% to 47%, well, who does that make up? How many women, how many, we can get into very specific areas, women, men, college educated, non-college educated, suburban areas, white evangelicals. So it's those sort of more nuanced in a way that can tell us a lot.
And when you talked about weighting people in polls, and Ben, then I'll come back to you in just 1 second, that has to do with kind of the math that you do to make the different populations within a poll sample balance out to whatever population you're trying to depict if you don't get enough of those people. Is that it?
Yes, and what you expect the electorate to look like too. So I know some, private polling that have been doing for campaigns. They're using sometimes more conservative models, even to the 2014 elections that were really disastrous for Republicans. But okay, if this is our worst case scenario, so a lot of times they will even run different scenarios with high turnout, medium turnout, low turnout, and what those look like.
Ben, I know I got to go in just a minute, but in terms of where we go with polling from here, where do political polls still need to improve? I think we put more emphasis on state numbers than just purely national numbers after 2016. But what's the next evolution that political polls need to make before we go?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's just there's so much polling out there now because as Jessica was saying, it's so hard to do it right. It costs so much money to do it right because people are not picking up their phone as often. You got to call people on their cell phones. I don't know about you. I don't pick up when I don't know the number necessarily. It's hard to reach people. But the flip side is you're getting a lot more junk polls because people can just, throw stuff on the internet and, text people out. The cheaper polling is easier than ever. So we just have to be really careful, I think, honestly, about trusting the people trusting people who you would want to deliver the news, people who, are trusted sources in that regard, trust their polling, maybe give that one a little bit of a leg up versus someplace you've never heard of or a partisan poll that you've never heard of, things like that. And I also think we just need to be honest about what we got right and what we get wrong and always be improving. I know we need to go in a minute, not going to get into details, but after the 2020 election, we took a step back at NBC and said, hey, we, clearly something wasn't right here. What do we do? And us and our pollsters, we sat down, we looked and we figured it out and ultimately came up with next steps. Everyone should be always trying to improve because at the end of the day, we all should want to improve.
Yeah. My biggest piece of advice for reading polls, it's just a depiction, not a prediction. If you look at a poll and expect, oh, this is what's going to happen, that's on you, baby. You got to understand the limitation of this data. The only numbers that matter at the end of the day are the vote totals. It's a depiction, not a exactly. It's a snapshot in time. It's a depiction, not a prediction. NBC's Ben Camisar and Jessica Taylor of the Cook Political Report. Appreciate you both making time for us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.